What does Jack Grealish, Andy Carroll, Fernando Torres, and Trevor Francis have in common? You have just 2 seconds to answer. 1, 2. Okay, time out. They are all British club record signings, the most expensive of them being Jack Grealish, where he made a £100 million move from Aston Villa to Manchester City in the summer of 2021. Fernando Torres, or El Nino as he is fondly called, became the most expensive Premier League signing in January 2011 when he made a move from Liverpool to Chelsea for £50 million. But on the same day in 2011, Liverpool signed Andy Carroll for £35 million, making him the most expensive British player at the time, and a contentious Premier League record signing, because according to reports, his move to Liverpool was sanctioned before that of Torres to Chelsea. And for Trevor Francis, he is the first player to command a £1 million transfer figure in the history of British football. I just threw that in just for a fun fact, when he made a move from Birmingham City to Nottingham Forest in 1979. The point I'm trying to make is that Andy Carroll was once one of the Premier League's most prized assets, and at the time, the most sought after by many clubs. But how does a striker at such level of the game start experiencing a downtime? How does one go from starring for England in Euro 2012 to becoming clubless in 2021 at age 32? The question is, what happened to Andy Carroll? In this video, we take a look at the rise and fall of Andy Carroll. Born on 6th January 1989 in Gateshead, a town not far from Newcastle in England, it didn't take long for a young Carroll to find himself playing for Newcastle United's reserve team, and in his first professional contract with the club in July 2006, aged just 17. A few days after his 18th birthday, Carroll made his Premier League debut for Newcastle, which many expected to be one of many, coming on as a substitute in the 87th minute as Newcastle were beaten by Wigan Athletics. From that point, the greatness of Carroll would begin as football pundits took notice of his brilliance, which made him become the recipient of the World Jackie Milburn Trophy, awarded every year to the rising star of North East football among Newcastle players. In the summer of 2007, Andy Carroll made headlines as legendary goalkeeper Gianluigi Buffon held him as he scored against Juventus in a 2-0 victory in the preseason friendly. Buffon referred to him as a paintbrush striker, out to add finishing touches to the ball, and tipped him to be one of the greatest strikers for the future, simply because he could play with his left and right foot, and with a height of 193 cm, he sure as hell could score with his head. Premier League legend Kevin Keegan once described him as one of the greatest headers of the ball. Carroll can easily be described as a strong and very physical forward, while on the rise you can liken him to Erling Haaland today, even though some may say that's a bit too much praise for him. At the beginning of the 2007 season, Carroll will move to Preston North End for a 6-month loan deal. Even with great talent, it seemed like an ideal move for the young starlet, because the Newcastle setup at the time was highly competitive and boasted of attacking options of already established strikers like Michael Owen, Mark Viduka, and Obafemi Martins. Andy Carroll stayed on the fringes at Newcastle United, making cameo appearances and playing in the League Cup matches, and earning a 3.5-year contract extension in the process. But it was in the summer of 2009 that Andy Carroll announced himself to the world. As football will have it, Newcastle United was relegated in the Premier League at the end of the 2008-2009 season. Shortly after, established strikers like Michael Owen and Obafemi Martins moved out of the club to Manchester United and Wolfsburg respectively, and Mark Viduka being released. The club was in dire need of a striker, and guess who rose up to the occasion? Andy Carroll, the one who had understudied the finishing touches of Michael Owen, the speed of Obafemi Martins, and the brilliance of Mark Viduka for years. Andy Carroll took championship by storm, finishing as the third highest goal scorer with 17 goals, same as teammate Kevin Nolan, with Newcastle gaining promotion to the Premier League as the winners of the championship. The heroics of Andy Carroll will continue in the Premier League the next season, as he would go on to score 11 goals in 19 Premier League games before the January transfer window, with virtually all the Premier League clubs circling in on Andy Carroll, all keeping tabs on Newcastle's most prized possession. He had also established himself as an England striker, making his first appearance in a friendly against France in November of 2010. No doubt this 22-year-old was ready to conquer the world. But as Carrol made headlines as one of the best strikers in the EPL, he was quickly becoming a Premier League bad boy as well, as he consistently made negative headlines off the pitch, also clashing in training with teammates Steven Taylor and Charles Nzogbe, getting suspended while with the England under-19 team, and by January 2011, he had already been arrested 3 times by the police, once for reportedly fighting in a nightclub and smashing a glass in a man's face. His car was once set on fire, supposedly as part of his troubles off the pitch, but his negative headlines off the pitch mattered not to then Liverpool coach and club legend Kenny Dalglish, as he splashed £35 million to bring him to Anfield as replacement for Fernando Torres, who made a £50 million move to Chelsea on the same day. It's also interesting to say that Luis Suarez was also unveiled as a Liverpool player on the same day as Carrol in a £22.7 million deal. But it was the British record signing who dominated the headlines, even though Luis Suarez came into Liverpool at the back of an amazing season in which he scored 49 goals in 48 appearances for Ajax. You see, Carrol moved to Anfield with a thigh injury and had missed 5 matches prior to his move to Liverpool. Carrol didn't hit the ground running at Anfield as well, as he will make his debut after 1 month of signing, finishing the season with just 2 goals for Liverpool and 11 for Newcastle United, to make it a total of 13 goals in the season. It goes without saying that being one of the most expensive strikers in the EPL comes with responsibilities, and at a weekly wage of £80,000, Carrol needed to start banging in the goals. But time and time again, Carrol struggled to get goals as the proposed partnership with Suarez wasn't successful because of difference in styles of play. Simply because Carrol is a striker with a huge body frame and would want the ball in the air at all times. He was also the focal point of most long balls from the goalkeeper, and most times, leaving the opposition's 18-yard box to win area duels in the midfield will make a striker not to score lots of goals, and he will be missing in the 18-yard box. Don't get me wrong, Carrol produced some amazing goals for Liverpool winning the League Cup and even scoring in the 2-1 FA Cup loss to Chelsea. But for some reasons, he failed to recreate the magic of the previous years at Liverpool. At the end of the season, Liverpool finished at the 6th position, and for a team that won the UEFA Champions League in 2005 and played in the final in 2007, that meant that the fans demanded more from their strikers to quickly get back into the summit of European football, the UEFA Champions League. Carrol's full season at Anfield will see him play 35 Premier League games, scoring 4 goals. But I would also want to say that most of the times he came in as a sub. This was a poor run on a £35 million investment. Indeed, the price tag came with immense pressure, and you know what they say, to whom much is given, much is expected. And an 8th place finish meant a new manager was needed. Kenny Dalglish left the club at the end of the season, and Brendan Rodgers was unveiled as the manager of Liverpool in June 2012. Some reports were even that Brendan Rodgers demanded Carrol's exit from the club as one of the requirements for him signing on as the coach of Liverpool. But that's not the case here. In addition to that, a huge weekly wage and a desire to prove critics wrong meant that Carrol would pick up a new challenge at newly promoted London side West Ham United in a season-long loan move. The initial season was a mixture of goals and injuries, as Carrol would end up scoring 7 goals and miss 24 appearances. This was enough to make the deal permanent, as West Ham paid £15 million for the striker to make his stay a permanent one. At West Ham, Carrol seems to have more injuries than goals in his 6-year stay. Even though the goals stopped flowing as before, his party boy lifestyle off the pitch never stopped. As England manager at the time, Fabio Capello, have warned Carrol to stop drinking. His coach at West Ham accused Carrol of not working hard enough and even reported that Carrol doesn't like watching football. This coach was Sam Allardyce, who coached Carrol in 2 occasions. This is significant because most clinical strikers have been reported to rewatch their games and even study the moves of the opposition defenders in a bid to get better at scoring. But I would like to say that at this time, Carrol was actually in the England squad at the Euro 2012, scoring the opener in England's 3-2 win against Sweden through a powerful header. To this day, he has 9 England caps with 2 goals to his name. No doubt the talent was there, but the indiscipline, injuries and sometimes hard luck meant that the fans' favourites missed a lot of games at West Ham, from knee injuries to ankle surgeries and spending lots of days on the sidelines. West Ham had no option than to let him go at the end of his contract in May 2019. To put things into perspective, in the 2014-2015 season, Carrol missed a staggering 25 games while being sidelined for 214 days. Also, in what seemed as the last straw that broke the camel's back, and the Carrol was injured for a total 337 days in his last season at West Ham. His exploits in West Ham produced 34 goals in 142 appearances. But I would like to mention that injury never stopped his ability to produce amazing goals, as most of his goals will always pop up in almost every compilation of eye-popping goals out there. At West Ham, fitness was obviously an issue, but the few times he played, he showed what a brilliant striker he can be. It was emotional as Andy Carroll rejoined Newcastle United after 8.5 years away from his boyhood club. On transfer deadline day in 2019, club coach Steve Bruce showed faith in Carroll, signing him on a pay-as-you-play contract, even though he was injured at the time. Carroll was also 30 years at this time. At 30, there was little time, but he is still young enough to prove he could do it. After all, Ruud van Nistelrooy was 30 when he signed for Real Madrid and scored 25 goals in the 2006-2007 season, winning the Pichichi and the La Liga in the process. So age is nothing but a number if the determination is there. Andy Carroll called his return to Newcastle a dream move, even though the terms of the deal showed that he has lost the bargaining rights he once had years earlier, as his wage was reported to be £20,000 a week, with appearance fees believed to be in the region of £75,000 when he is fit enough to start, and £35,000 for a substitute's role. Of course, at this time, he has been handed a lifeline to resurrect his career by Steve Bruce. But notably, prior to Carroll's second arrival to Newcastle United, Newcastle broke the bank to sign Joelinton for £40 million from Hoffenheim, which makes the Brazilian a club record signing to this day. And Carroll, upon his arrival, had to work on his fitness and compete for a place in the team, alongside a record signing and Dwight Gale. Even though Carroll made a lot of appearances at Newcastle, also receiving a lot of support from the supporters who wanted to see a local and one of their ball boys for 3 years make it back to the top of the Premier League. It didn't happen, as Carroll failed to capitalize on some of the chances given to him by the coach. In addition to that, Carroll never really looked as fit as he was in his first stint at the club, because sometimes he was ruled out as a result of injuries. Also at this stage, the negative off-pitch headlines has been reduced to the barest minimum, but time seems to be ticking away on Carroll, as Steve Bruce will announce that Carroll has been released by Newcastle in July 2021. According to Bruce, Carroll, now aged 32, wants more playing time, and he wished him good luck in his quest to find a new club. Even though Carroll's return to Newcastle United seemed like a disappointment with just 1 goal in 37 appearances for the Magpies, he is still hungry for goals and seemed not to have given up on his dreams, as there have been reports that he is weighing his options with interest coming in from clubs outside of Europe. And most recently, Andy Carroll has been linked with Championship side Reading FC. To be honest, I personally wish Carroll the best in his endeavors, as we wait to see where he goes next to play his football. But truly, I would like to hear from you. Do you think Andy Carroll can turn his career around? Tell me what you think in the comments section, because for me, I believe in never say never, and I think he can do it if he puts his mind to it. That's all we have time for on this episode of Gosmila Football. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to the channel, as this will help grow the channel.